Well, I think most of us read it, and obviously a little bit in self-defense to make sure we weren't going to be the Mickey Mantle. But I don't think, well, there might have been some of us that said, no, I don't want to go anywhere near it. But certainly it's an exposure that was going to happen. It was, most of it, as we even gathered around and said, it may have been a little bit different in its time, but unfortunately, Jim never got sued because most of it was true.
One other thing, you know, like you said, it said some derogatory things about certain people, and for some reason, he said some nice things about me. I didn't know why, because the next year I went, Schultz was in spring training, and I walked towards him to say hello, and he said, "Don't come here, Jim Bouton, Bobo."
You know, it was just an opportunity to get to play. I was in Baltimore, and when you look at where most guys were drafted, some guys were a high draft pick by Seattle, or some guys were in the middle of the pack. But on every club, you were the 15th guy on their roster that they didn't protect. So to get that opportunity to come to either Seattle or Kansas City or whatever it was, just to get an opportunity to play. And like you said, some guys were at the end of the career, it was a restart for them. But for me, it was an opportunity to play. They found out pretty early that I couldn't because they traded me in June.
Seattle Pilots was the major leagues, and that's all you strived to do was be in the major leagues. I would have been happy to play my whole career here. You did? Yeah, I did.
No, I'm not going to say it. Goose could hit. He could hit, really.
Well, I wasn't in the expansion draft, but was going very poorly for the Chicago White Sox, and after 2 months they decided I was done, and it was kind of ironic to me because I had one pitch, was a sinking fastball, and was very temperamental, and I lost it. And I found it just before they traded me. I walked 3 hitters, which I never, that was a cardinal sin, and I knew I had it. And I came back into the dugout, and they were ready to write me off, and I said, "That's the best game I've had. I've got it." And a week later, I was gone. However, I think I had my sinker back, and my career was resurrected, and they traded me eventually. I got traded to the Oakland A's, and thanks to that little move probably led to a couple of World Series rings. So thank you, Seattle.
I was the one that was traded for Lou Piniella. So one red asked for another. I guess that's what they tell him. But that's really what happened, because when I was drafted by Kansas City, a lot of these guys might remember, we had a little mini strike going in spring training. And I only had a couple years under my belt at the time, but Mo Drabowski, who was our player rep by proxy, got a hold of me after the draft and said, you know, don't report to spring training. We got a little problem here. We're trying to, the union, we got to stand strong in the union. So I'm hanging out in Hollywood, Florida with my fiance at the time, and all of a sudden I turn on the TV after, you know, everybody reports there's 60 ball players report to Fort Myers for Kansas City, and only 4 of us didn't. Joe Foy, Mo Drabowski, myself, and I think Fitzpatrick. So when I finally reported about 10 days later, Cedric Tallis, he was totally pissed, and he just said, you know, why didn't you, you know, what was you thinking? You should have been the first one here, in which I should have, because I was AWOL with the 1968 Yankees too. So this was my whole career was just in a spiral. But I did not report, trying to be a union guy, and when I finally then I got traded 10 days later to Seattle for Piniella. And when I arrived in Tempe, Milks picked me up personally in the airport, and he said, You know, this is about a 5-minute drive to Tempe, to the hotel, but it's a quick drive right back if you pull any of that stuff with us. And so I was on, and so I had to have a great spring training, which I did, to even make the club up north. So we're all grateful. I mean, it was a second chance for us to participate. Plus, I'm a hometown. I'm from Tacoma, so I was coming back home. So it was good for me.
I know myself, I got traded from Baltimore along with Gene Brabender, and it was, of course, I went to AAA, and it gave you the thought and hope that someday you might get a chance to play for the Pilots, and lo and behold, every shortstop that played for the Pilots that year got hurt. So they were looking for anybody that could catch the ball, and that's one thing at least I could do. I wasn't going to hit it very well, but it did give me an opportunity to get to big leagues for a while.
I got traded over from, I was working, yeah. Got traded over from the Cleveland Indians to the Seattle Pilots and went to Vancouver, AAA ball for about 2 months. And when I got the call that I was coming here, and the guy asked me the other day, said, how'd you feel about that? I had no feeling. I was happy as hell to get out of there, to get down here. And it started my career, and I love this city, Seattle Pilots.
Yeah, I really think it was out of our control, and we weren't privy to what was going on, and it was the case of we just had to report and be ready, and I don't think any of us, I think we were all just trying to get through spring training and do the best we can to be ready, and that was kind of the case of having you didn't know where the bus was headed, but we were soon going to leave spring training and go somewhere. And yeah, I think I've been traded several times, and I think that's the case of many of the players up here. And never was I traded that I wasn't very disappointed. But never did it work out to where it wasn't actually something that furthered a career. So Milwaukee wasn't a very good stop for me because the manager there I don't think was a big fan. And I was sold to Oakland within 2 weeks after the family just got there a couple of days before. So by the end of April, I think it was, I was traded to the Oakland A's or sold or whatever. And there are those 2 World Series rings. So Mac and I loved the area because we both loved to fish, and I shouldn't tell this, but it is true. Mac had a pickup truck, and we bought a mattress and put it in the back. And I was the relief pitcher, so I didn't have to pitch early. And we would drive south the whole length of the state, go into, I don't know whether it was southern Washington or upper Oregon, to steelhead fish, the Toutle, the Green, all the rivers down there. We'd leave after the ball game, 10:30 at night, get something to eat in the clubhouse, drive all night, get there at 5 in the morning, get out and fish. But the trick was whoever had to play the next night, and it was usually Mac, would get to sleep on the way home. So Mac would drive down, I'd drive back, and we got back after a whole day of me catching 2 and Mac 0. But we loved it. I mean, it's a beautiful country, and I was traded in June, so what weather? I mean, I saw nothing but spectacular weather, loved the city, and I didn't want to go anywhere, but we had no choice.
I've been coming to Seattle for a long time. I was in the Pacific Coast League, and we used to come in here and play. And where we went after the ball game, I can't say because my wife was sitting right over there. So I'm going to take the fifth on that one.
My wife and I lived out in Bellevue here, in fact, and I think just to be able to go to the ballpark every day and drive across the lake and look at the mountains, and we both loved it up here, but I got traded to Oakland in June, so that kind of was a turnaround for me. And like Bob Blocker said, a couple of World Series rings later, you know, it was that made the difference. But I love the area. I love the mountains up here, and as far as I can remember, I don't think we ever got rained out for the first 2 or 3 months of the season up here. The weather wasn't like it was today. I mean, it was gorgeous. It was, who was it that wrote the song? The bluest skies are in Seattle. And it was for us that year.